The Learning with Pibby mods have been very popular over the last couple of months, and people have been asking me to go over each of the characters that have been corrupted and how their corruption has changed them. So I'm going to go through each of the major ones, and then at the end I'll go over some of the characters that were able to escape the corruption. The first character that we need to go over is going to be Mordhau. He was one of the two main protagonists in the regular show. The other one being his best friend Rigby, and the two of them used to get into a ton of trouble together and mostly just tick off Benson. A lot of people have noticed that Mordhau doesn't have as severe as a corruption as some of the other characters. Only his feet and a little bit of his wings are really covered in a corruption, but he is still as far gone as any of the characters that have most of their body taken by the corruption. He is a mindless zombie that is simply looking to corrupt anybody he can get his hands on. And the fact that I find funny about Mordhau's song is that in the background you'll see that there's a golf cart that has crashed. That is actually the golf cart that he was driving when he got corrupted, and he ended up crashing it when he started losing his mind. The next characters that we're going to talk about are going to be Finn and Jake, and it makes sense to put these two together because they're both from the show Adventure Times. They're best friends and they're technically brothers. Finn was the main protagonist of the show and he was considered to be a hero, but since being corrupted he has definitely fallen from grace. And unlike some of the other characters that have been corrupted, Finn isn't just looking to corrupt other people, he's actually out to catch bodies. If you look at his actual sprite, he is trying to chop boyfriend's head off. I would argue that out of all the corrupted characters, Finn is probably the most outwardly violent. While Jake may not be as violent as Finn, I believe that he is a lot creepier than Finn. I say this because when Jake was corrupted, since he already had the ability to shape and morph his body, the corruption basically just amplified that. Not only did the corruption completely consume the lower half of his body, but even now when he shapeshifts, he can become this dark mask of just utter nightmare fuel. His creepiest pose by far is his up pose because he takes on the appearance of Gold from the Friday Night Funkin' Lullaby mod. The next character is Princess Bubblegum, and since we just talked about Jake and Finn, it seems fitting to talk about her as well because technically she was very close friends with Jake and she was also a love interest for Finn in the show. And something that is very sad about her character being corrupted is that she was actually very smart in the show. She was like a scientist slash inventor. And realistically, if she wouldn't have been caught by the corruption, she probably would have been one of the people leading the charge in order to stop the corruption from taking over more people. But sadly, that is not the case, and the corruption has taken over her body, and more specifically one of her hands that's like this monstrous claw. And if I'm being honest, as far as aesthetics goes, she's probably the creepiest looking character in the entire mod. Next, let's talk about Steven Universe and Spinel because they are both from the same universe. Steven, of course, is the main character in the Steven Universe series. He is such a big deal because he was the first hybrid of human and gem, making him the first human to actually be a crystal gem. And even though Steven is very powerful, and I think more accurate to say he's very durable, not even he was strong enough to prevent the corruption from taking over his body. So the shield that he used to use to defend people is now being used to go corrupt people. Now, for those of you who know Spinel's backstory, it's probably not that big of a surprise that she would fall victim to the corruption. Spinel held a lot of hate in her heart for Pink Diamond, considering the fact that she abandoned her and left her standing alone for thousands of years. And we also know that when Spinel actually came to Earth, she came with the intent to destroy all organic life forms on the planet in order to get revenge. Now, we know that later on that situation gets resolved, and Spinel actually becomes, if not a good character, at least a less destructive character. But when she becomes corrupted, all that malicious intent comes right back to her, and considering that she has a scythe that can literally take away a gem's power for a while, and not to mention she's very good at using it, so even if she's just fighting regular people, she would still be a huge threat. And she has the ability to stretch her body, fly, and she's super powerful. Makes her not only a threat to just corrupting people, but also just straight up catching bodies. The next person that we need to talk about on our list is going to be Gumball Watterson. This was the blue cat, aka the main protagonist of the Amazing World of Gumball series. You probably remember that he had a fish brother named Darwin and a little sister named Anais. Something interesting about Gumball is that he's a very optimistic character, and even though he may not be the smartest character, he is brilliant when it comes to actually making some type of scheme or some type of plan that's probably going to end up getting him in trouble later. And he is very protective over the people that he really loves. But with that being said, he's also very sarcastic and he has a very cynical nature towards society in general. So in a way, I'm not surprised that his character ends up getting corrupted and is now actually corrupting other people in society. Now, moving on to some of the more classic characters that ended up getting corrupted, we're going to go ahead and start with Shaggy. And just to be clear, this isn't the meme version of Shaggy that is like super powerful, able to fly and go Super Saiyan. This is the regular Norville Rogers Shaggy, the one that was 17 years old and used to ride around with Scooby and the gang in the Mystery Mobile. Now, something that I find sad and interesting about this version of Shaggy though is that once he loses his friends to the corruption, he becomes this mindless zombie, but he's going out to infect people because he lost his friends. It's almost as if he wants other people to feel the pain of loss that he feels. And even when looking at the Adult Swim trailer, we're able to see that at least Velma and Scooby are both infected, and we all know that Scooby and Shaggy were basically inseparable. Next up, we have Fred Flintstone, and he was the main protagonist from the 1960s shows called The Flintstones. And we actually got to see his corruption scene in the trailer on Adult Swim, where he's sliding down the back of the dinosaur and goes right into the corruption, which was kind of sad to see because it was his iconic slide. Something else that's kind of sad about him being corrupted is that we never get to see if his wife, and more importantly, if his daughter Pebbles makes it away from the corruption. The next character that I want to talk about isn't as old as the previous two, but she is from the 1990s, and that is going to be Bubbles from the Powerpuff Girls. Now, I find it interesting that she is the Powerpuff Girl that ended up getting corrupted because in my opinion, she was definitely the kindest and just an overall sweetheart. Ironically enough though, her zombie form is not a sweetheart at all. It is out to catch bodies, and I mean that in a literal sense. When you lose to Bubbles in the Pibby mod, she doesn't just corrupt you, she completely just flies through your body like an evil Superman. The Bubbles game over screen is definitely one of the more brutal ones to ever be put into Friday Night Funkin'. Next on our list, we're going to go with the young Robin from the Teen Titans Go. Let's be honest, out of everybody on his team, Robin would definitely probably be the easiest person for the corruption to catch, because at the end of the day, even though he's a good leader, he has a bunch of gadgets and he's in top physical condition, I mean, he's still just a human, and grapple hooks and backflips can only get you so far. I also find it really ironic that Robin has on a bulletproof shirt, and I find it ironic because the corruption only took over his lower half, almost as if it did it on purpose just to show him that he was silly to even have on a bulletproof vest against it to begin with. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit is another character that ends up falling victim to the corruption, and it's kind of funny because his name is the Lucky Rabbit and he ends up getting corrupted. Now, something I find interesting about Oswald's transformation is that his eyes are completely gone and they are replaced instead with this TV static. And unlike many characters, Oswald actually has two forms, and his second form is complete nightmare fuel. I think the only character that looks creepier than Oswald is probably Princess Bubblegum. The last major corrupted characters I want to talk about here are going to be Skid and Pump. Skid and Pump were created by Sir Pilo, and they are two jolly kids who just love spooky month, aka Halloween in general. The two boys are basically inseparable and are definitely best friends. And this is what makes their corruption so sad. When Skid and Pump are corrupted, they are basically merged together, meaning that they can no longer be separated at all. And what's even more sad than that is that the boys are not even trying to corrupt other people. They are just stuck in that mansion from week 2 in the original Friday Night Funkin' game, and all they do is the spooky dance mindlessly forever. And the reason that they're doing this dance is because it's the last memory that they have before they were corrupted. So I guess if you want to put a silver lining around it, you can say that at least they get to be happy zombies. But in reality, they're just as mindless and hopeless as every other person that has been corrupted. And in my opinion, even though Skid and Pump are two of the sweetest characters in Friday Night Funkin', I feel like they always get the worst outcomes in mods. Now, we also have some notable characters that were able to avoid the corruption, starting out with Buttercup from the Powerpuff Girls. We have Darwin, who is Gumball's brother. We also have Samurai Jack, if some of y'all are old enough to remember him. We have Miriam from Courage the Cowardly Dog. And the last character that I recognize on this list is going to be Lady Rainicorn. Let me know down in the comments which one of these characters that you recognize and where they're from. If you want to know about Corrupted Boyfriend and Corrupted Pico, make sure to click this video on the screen here. Thank you for watching. Peace.